This year's celebration marks the 78th anniversary of the founding United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, UNFAO, and are aiming at promoting global awareness and action for those suffering from hunger. Today, I am being joined by special guests. As I said before, you are most welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Susan. It's a privilege.
And before we start our discussion, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Suzanne. I'm Muriel McGroarty, and I'm the representative and the country director for the World Food Programme here in South Sudan.
Good afternoon, Suzanne. Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Meshak Malo. I'm the Food and Agriculture Organization country representative in South Sudan.
Welcome once again to our studios. As I said before, today I'm hosting two people, one from WFP and another one from UNFAO. As we are going to begin our program, can you tell us, please, what is the World Food Day and why is it celebrated?
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. World Food Day puts a spotlight on food security across the globe. And this year in particular, it's focusing on the importance of water for food security. Water is life, and all life depends on water, and the importance of water for food security. You know, we work in South Sudan where food insecurity is a huge issue, but there is huge opportunity when we look at the water resources in South Sudan. So it's very important, and it's really great to be here today to spotlight World Food Day.
So you are celebrating water is life and food also at the same time is life. Can you tell us why is it being celebrated in South Sudan when we are here in South Sudan? We are not seeing any food from anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think in South Sudan as across the globe we celebrate World Food Day. The last couple of years is, you know, the challenges from climate change that you have unprecedented flooding, but also drought in parts of the country. But you have the amazing water resources that we have in South Sudan for agriculture, the potential that is there for livestock, the potential that is there for fisheries, the potential that is there to be able to use the water, the inland waterways, as a way to connect markets, tap that potential.
Well, thank you so much for briefing us on the World Food Day. And Meshak Malo, can you tell us what do you understand as a FAO representative? What do you understand about World Food Day?
No, the World Food Day is an opportunity once the world has determined that food is a basic right, that everyone has got the right to food, and it's important that people wake up or go to bed sure of their food. So the World Food Day is a global event whereby we pause, and as Mel said, we reflect, we put a spotlight. Where have we come from? Where are we now? And where are we going? Security. For instance, in South Sudan, we can look at where were we in 2013, where were we during independence, where are we now, and where are we going, and what is the gap? For instance, still the food gap remains wide. When we look at cereal production alone, you see that there is a gap of over 600 metric tons. However, South Sudan also produces food, but it produces that which is not enough to cater for its food security need. Last year, the production was about 900,000 metric tons. So it's good, but it's not good enough. But when we look at it, we see that our sister agency like WFP in particular has contributed immensely in terms of the food that is brought from out of the country. So this is an opportunity for us to look at all this aspect and appreciate, for instance, that South Sudan is able to produce its own food, and look at the challenges that are there and work together as various stakeholders, we in the United Nations, the government, together to see how can we ensure that all South Sudanese are able to have sufficient food.
So as you mentioned, last year you produced 900 metric tons. And do you think that by producing these 900, will South Sudan really be satisfied from this amount of production?
Not at all. South Sudan in cereal production alone, they need 1.4 million. And that's why you can already see the gap that is there. But when we look at why is the gap there, we find that, for instance, the lack of peace contributes in a big way. We have many people who are out who need to come back and engage in farming, and a number of factors that are there that we can work together to ensure that the gap is filled.
Thank you for that. Let me come back to you. How is this day going to be celebrated? As you mentioned, this year's celebration is going to take place in Torit. How are you going to celebrate it in Torit? Can you tell us what are the criteria taking this celebration to Torit this year?
I mean, I think going to REIT is one of those examples to show what some of the successes over the last couple of years. You know, a number of years ago, the World Food Programme had massive food distribution programs in Torit in emergency response. Now we're looking at much smaller programs, so it's a chance to go there and show the potential of agriculture, the potential production that Mishak was talking about, and bringing together the UN agencies, the community, and the government, and also to put the spotlight on the enormous potential that there does exist in South Sudan, you know, around agriculture, around production, but also to highlight, you know, the challenges that still need to be addressed. You know, and Mishak alluded to peace is a particular one, but also having that investment in infrastructure so that even like organizations like the World Food Programme, who do buy some food in South Sudan, we can buy more for the programs in South Sudan, connect the school meals to local production, and be able to connect productive areas with less productive areas to be able to redistribute the food in the country.
So in your plan as the WFP, you has that you want to produce like 1.4 million production food in South Sudan to satisfy all the South Sudanese. What are the plans put in place? At least South Sudan can get half of that 1.4 million.
Yeah, I mean they've come a long way, as Mishak said. I mean, it was over 900,000 last year. There is huge investments going in agricultural production under the leadership of the Ministry of Agriculture, and they're all, I mean, to be able to up the production in the production zones. There's also plans afoot to look at how that infrastructure as well can come together. WFP and FAO work closely together on working with communities, working with farmers' organizations to be able to help them improve production, to help them to be able to aggregate their production. And this year alone, like WFP was really happy to be able to purchase over 10,000 tons in South Sudan, and that's a step in the right direction.
Well, Mishek Malo from WFP, well, this year's celebration is all about food is life and water is life, and your plan is not to leave anyone behind. So what I want to know, what have you put in place as the FAO, UN FAO, put in place to reduce the poverty or the hunger that have been facing South Sudanese?
Yeah, as you've said, one of the theme for this year is on water is life. Finally, when you look at the world around, like we just had a meeting with the countries in the sub-region. All Eritrea, serious problem with water. Djibouti, serious problem with water. But in South Sudan, water is flowing. Yeah, when we are just around Juba, in most of the hotels we sit, you literally see water flowing on the surface. In Eritrea, those areas you find you have to dig up to 100 meters to go down. So that means that in terms of water, South Sudan, although not in any areas, you'll find areas like Kapweta East, Kapweta North that face loss of water scarcity, but a majority part, then water is flowing. We can even use water as transport. So there is great opportunity to, for instance, use irrigation in order to make sure that we are able to grow 2-3 times in a year because of climate change. We are trying, for instance, to really rehabilitate the Awil irrigation water irrigation scheme. We've now done about 1,200 hectares of Awil irrigation scheme, but we still have challenges because despite the fact that it's an irrigation scheme, we are still planting once a year. This is not the basis of irrigation. You should be able to do 2 or 3 times. So our hope across the country is that in different regions, for instance, when you go to Western Equatorial, they were able to produce 130% of the food. That means 100% you have that is enough for you. 30% they could have been made available to export to other parts of South Sudan. But the transport infrastructure hindered that. And then you go to areas like Jonglei, they were only able to produce about 15% of their food. So we have areas that we really need to lift up. When you look at Central Equatorial, where they did almost 80-something% of their food, here is an area in which the potential is high. So we need to we are looking at state by state and looking at what are the opportunities for each state in order to lift up the production. But there is a lot of opportunity to raise productivity, that is one. And secondly, look at other sectors, for instance, livestock, fisheries, that are important sectors when it comes to food security.
Wow, that's good. You mentioned a very important part in agricultural sector, especially fish and animals. We have meat already, but I don't know, how is your cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture? Before, there was already projects that have been put in place. We have sugar in Mangala, and then we have rice in Awil, and then we have cotton in that side of Western Equatoria and Zara. And I just want to know, where are these projects being kept? Because you are working in collaboration with the government, the Ministry of Agriculture. How are you going to do this thing, or what have you put in plan? Where are these projects now?
Yeah. As the projects you're mentioning, these are what South Sudan and within the Comprehensive Agriculture Development Plan, which is called the CAMP, are regarded as national projects. There are about nine of them. So due to the fighting and the war, these were able to be dilapidated. They've gone down. If you go to the Yambio for the cotton, that will just, technology has gone too far. It will require just a total revamp, because those that are mostly in their 60s and 70 years, above 55 are the ones who wore the shirts that came from that particular facility. I have personally visited the facility more than twice. It will require a total revamp. We are working on a wheel irrigation scheme. As I said, we've now been able to rehabilitate about 1,200 hectares. To go to the 4,000, we'll need now real massive investment, so that the production is not only just for food consumption, but to be able to supply the entire country. Currently, we are investing about $1,500 per acre, but for us to really make sure that a wheel irrigation scheme reaches the level it needs to reach, it needs an investment of about $13,000 per acre in order to put the infrastructural facility that is needed there. That means that, and that's why peace and stability is important, because once that is attained, then that level of investment, we are going to, in a wheel, it's a scheme that needs to attract, even Mangala, sugar. We don't need the taxpayers' money to be put again to such schemes. But once we're able to develop good plans, we are going to call investors who can come in and invest in that process. You look at the fishery, the main limiting factor in the fishery sector is energy to store the fish. Yeah. Because that's why now, at least, South Sudan has started to export fish to DRC, but this is dried fish. And the more you dry fish, the percentage you dry fish, the percentage you lose money on it. Yeah. So if you dry, like the fish that is been dried that is going to DRC, has been dried up to about 90-something%. 90-something% of the cost is lost. So that just shows you how there are many factors, particularly energy, that is going to be very important, and investment. But there are investors out there. Last week we were together with the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Livestock and Fishery, Honorable Adigo Nyikwak, and the Governor of Northern Baigazal. where we can see investors are willing to come in and invest in South Sudan. But one, they need confirmation of security. Two, they need confirmation that their investment is secured and that they can remove it. So there are a number of factors, but we are there. For the first time, South Sudan was able to participate in an agriculture investment forum. So that's a great step. So the potential in South Sudan is huge, but unfortunately we can't eat potential. We have to do something to be able to convert that into real food.
What is the recommendation of that meeting with all the stakeholders, all the ministries, especially the one for agriculture and fisheries? What are the recommendations that you came with it out during that meeting?
Yeah, the first big recommendation being that it was the first time for South Sudan as a country to make a presentation to investors. We were very glad that we were able to prepare the material. What is needed, people asking questions, how much is required to be invested, what is the rate of return that I will get. So that was the first great thing, because South Sudan has been known for emergency, and so to be able to create this picture was great. So the second part is that we need to work on particularly our land tenure laws and regulation, so that investors, as they come in, it is clear what is the land aspect. Another aspect is the issue of how will they bring in their money and take out their profits. So we've picked up quite a number of lessons from that, participating in that event, that will create a good baseline as we move ahead.
Can you tell us something about what he said is an addition to what he said?
Yeah, I think Mishak's, because that's really, for the private sector to come in and harness the potential. Yeah. Still in South Sudan, we have, over 7 million people that are dealing with the impacts of climate change will be enough to be dealing with. The rule of law, the stability as well for to bring the markets together and to drive the markets and energize the markets. I mean, you spoke about, and it's not just, for the World Food Programme, and as every single day we're out on the road bringing food assistance to looking at basic crops, but you have so much potential here. You mentioned the sugar and everything else, and you look at the fruit and vegetables, and all that needs the investment. It needs the investment, but there needs to be the enabling conditions.
You're going to reduce hunger into 0% in South Sudan. So I just want to know, what are the plans of W?
Yeah, I think we all, the world, the global community, we have our Sustainable Development Goals, and SDG 2, as we call it, is the zero hunger. It's all about in South Sudan. We certainly have a mountain to climb. In South Sudan, the levels of food insecurity are the highest since independence, sadly. But I said there is potential. It means us working together. There are huge humanitarian needs, addressing those humanitarian needs, but also investing in resilience, investing in development, and investing in peace. I don't think it's just WFP's job, it's everybody's job together, but certainly the ownership and under the leadership of the government of South Sudan, because again, it's about peace, it's about investment, it's about delivering also basic services. Food security is not just related to the lack of food being available. It's also access to food and being able to access food. It's the quality of food. So it's bringing all those pieces together. And we are working. We have our country strategic plan that we just had approved at the board last year, where we speak about the humanitarian needs, but we have a focus on working with the other organisations in the government around resilience, around programs like education and school meals to get the children into school. They're the future of the country. And also around addressing the huge malnutrition burden that exists in South Sudan.
So investment itself needs peace, and agriculture itself needs peace. South Sudanese are suffering. They are not getting chance to cultivate for themselves. And I don't know, what are you doing in that?
What we do, it's where communities are able to return You know, I think about some of the successes we've seen over the last year, and as a community, with the government and with communities to advocate with peace. We have some projects that we do on resilience along that looks at resilience activities in difficult, conflict-prone areas, and brings a little bit of an aspect of social cohesion and peace building and dialogues to those projects. And we're starting to see small incremental progress in terms of working down at that grassroots level and bringing the dialogues. And you know, it's not WFP that works on the peace, but bringing the partners together. So bringing partners for peace, bringing partners for development, bringing partners for resilience, all together working with the communities and listening to the communities as to how we can help them.
So can you say something on that about the South Sudanese in their places? Some of them are getting too much, let me just say, because of the conflict, they are not doing anything. What are you doing, at least to make them come together and cultivate something for themselves before waiting for what you are planning for?
Yeah, definitely, as my colleague Mela said, there is actually a direct correlation between peace, lack of it, and food production. When you look at the mapping and see areas that are food insecure, then they correlate directly with the lack of peace.
Yeah.
When you look at areas like Western Equatoria, which I spoke about, which had 130%, that means they had 30% that they could export to other areas. It's been a peaceful area,
Yeah.
other than just last year, which you cannot even understand why. In areas like Tambura, you now have those problems. Actually, the area that is the most potential in South Sudan, and all South Sudanese know, is Yei. It is, if Western Equatoria is producing at 130%, they should be about 10% at the minimum higher. That means they are supposed to be producing at almost 140. But when you look at the production there, it's hitting 40 something. And when you look at the main drivers, it is peace.
Yeah.
And that shows how peace is so important, because without peace, even us as FAO, WFP, we are going to remain with just humanitarian assistance, trying to make sure that we get wheat, we get the flour, to the point that we might just drop it by the air.
Yeah.
So the peace is really, really fundamental and critical for our work in agriculture. Without it, it's difficult.
Yeah. I think with this we can go for a short break. Back, we shall continue from there. Stay tuned. Welcome back. If you have just joined us now, we are discussing about the World Food Day. Global World Food Day theme is water is life, water is food, and leave no one behind. Welcome back once again. As we are going to continue with the discussion, I want to understand from your side that as NGOs, does the NGOs really support farmers during the agricultural season, the local farmers?
Yes, definitely in South Sudan we have two main country. There's only one season. So as FAO and other non-governmental organizations, we are heavily involved, particularly during the off. Now that we are having some of our brothers and sisters that are coming back from Sudan, we are also doing the same, that during these seasons we are assisting them to start off the agricultural season. Secondly, there is a huge campaign normally for vaccination, because the livestock population in South Sudan is a very security, but for the lives of South Sudanese, a majority of them, livestock is really important, and we work a lot to ensure that these are not lost and are supported during the seasons too.
Mary Allen, I think you had something about the tractors during, and I think you have this in your list or in your record. And these tractors supposed to be worked in the States, just only to...
Was mothballed because, of course, you know, I mean, the country was quite destabilized with the conflict. And you come back to that question again about peace, and it's necessary to the climate. I mean, because we're talking about water today. You know, you have the double stress of water, whether it's flooding, whether it's drought. So of mechanized agriculture in South Sudan, again, that takes investment. You know, and for those to restart again, it's getting the investment.
That's good. With the UNFAO, you have been receiving so many donors. I mean, support have been given direct to FAO. How far? Then?
Yeah, just linked to the question that you just raised before about the tractors, is that at the end of the day, we need to work on more land. Currently, even with the 900,000 metric tons that I mentioned earlier, they are only produced, and we work more and produce even more with less. So that's the area of mechanization. So far what we've been business, we have not got there yet. So mostly with a big percent of our farmers, they're just doing their work for subsistence, and then the small extra, then that opportunity is going to be there even to sell out to the communities. But that will require that we increase our productivity. The productivity is still very low. Even within that 4% that we are plowing, we're doing less than 1 ton per acre, while other countries are doing 7-10 tons. When it comes to cows, we had a milking competition in Terekeka the other day. It's doing 1.5, 2 liters if we're lucky. Other countries in Kenya, Uganda, they're doing 10 liters. So there's a lot of work to be done on increasing the productivity also, so that we don't just sell, that we just need to expand in area, but we also need to increase in the productivity.
Wow. I hope today we are celebrating our World Food Day. We're supposed to have something here, either just only milk or just something small to show that we are here for food.
Exactly.
We are. So, Mary, can you tell us what makes agriculture or agricultural production poor in South Sudan?
It's the low level of yields is which Mishak touched on, and but also the low yields on livestock as well, and milk production. I mean, I come from a farming country myself in Ireland, right? I'm probably one of the global leaders in dairy. I was brought up around cattle, but yeah, it is the low productivity, and I think this is where there is the huge potential. As we are working at the small scale level and being able to lift it up, and lifting it up with the investment and with the private sector, but doing that also in a way, because I think we also, South Sudan needs to learn from the rest of the world as well. How do they move forward and unleash the potential in South Sudan, but also with the measures to adapt to climate change and the impact of climate change, so it is about bringing up the yields. It's about connecting as well. We often talk about, as WFP looks at try to increase the amount of food that we can buy in South Sudan, because we have our different programs where we're supporting those people that don't have access to food, whether it is the school meals food programs, the nutrition programs, even the humanitarian programs, how we can serve those programs from within South Sudan. So South Sudan produce for South Sudan programs. Yeah. But one of the biggest challenges, in addition to getting the offtake of the land and the yields and the aggregation and the quality, is also the infrastructure. So it's about making those investments in the high productivity areas so that they can be connected to the markets and to be able to redistribute across the country to those areas where there isn't the same potential maybe to grow crops. It's a different, they have different sorts of livelihoods. But yeah, it's connecting high potential with lower potential areas, the investment, and coming back to the governance and the rule of law, and creating those enabling conditions as well for the stability. We are all the same, whether it's, if you want to invest, you want to think there is a possibility and a return, and even ourselves, when we go to do things, is there certainty, is there surety? I think also one of the things in South Sudan also is the financing for agriculture. That is also a big issue, is looking at the financing for agriculture so that those investments can be made.
You touched something very important, the key to agriculture actually. I just want to know, is there any support? This question is supposed to go to the ministry, but as long you are still there for food and agriculture and all these things, I just want to know, how do you collaborate with Agricultural Bank of South Sudan? Is there any support from them to our farmers? I just want to understand something from that. Or how are you doing these things in collaboration with them?
Yeah, I mean, we have nascent collaboration with them, and maybe FAO has a bit more. But I do know, like, when we're looking at local procurement, local produce, so purchasing sorghum or commodities or maize in South Sudan, looking at see how we can leverage that, or how the Agriculture Bank can leverage that in farmers. It's still a conversation, because it's something you need to bring it to a greater scale, but there is potential there, and I do know up
Sudan Agricultural Bank, because we want to understand how do you really support each other, because they are there to support productivity in South Sudan, food agriculture.
Definitely the Agriculture Bank of South, as FAO, as WFP, we've been concentrating a lot on making sure that we leave nobody behind.
Yes.
But we have the middle class that needs and can be able to go and borrow the money. But as we all know, although the banking sector actually suffered the most during the clashes, the Agriculture Bank of South Sudan really needs liquidation, because in any bank, the power of a bank in its liquidation. So far, they are not borrowing. Secondly, there is a lack of confidence generally with the banks. Once people went there, put their money, when you went back, you their money in dollars. When you go, they want to give you in other currency. So you find that the trusts now, they have few branches. The Agriculture Bank of South Sudan, like Mel mentioned the example of the one that is in that I think it's struggling to come up, but it's an area that requires work and a lot in order for it really to get to the point that it can really begin giving the loans that is supposed to do that. The funding is
Thank you for that briefly. What I also want to understand is that before you were having agricultural schools, many South Sudanese have been going to gain some skills,
yeah,
so that at least they can do something for themselves. But now, if you realize that we have only Juba University, whereby we just get graduates from there, and the graduates have been going somewhere to do some other things, what's make them to go outside, not direct to their fields?
yeah, first is those schools. Like now we were as FAO, we've been trying to rehabilitate the Maria soldiers in there to vacate those premises, so that they can be taken back to their intended purpose and use. So that is a great gap. But as you say, once that's why we really need this total need to be rehabilitated and refurbished, so that they can begin to absorb the students. I have to say that as I've visited some of them, I've been, despite, I'm telling you, very, very difficult situations out there. But I want to believe that the government will really were the ones and are the ones that are supposed to give a majority of the young South Sudanese those capacities to move on. So it's been a difficult time for
FP. I think you understood what has been said. We are facing a lot, especially in getting skills of agriculture, and WFP is there. I don't know. Don't you think that this will contribute to the downfall of agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is. I mean, as Mishak said, that the investment is required in the skills. I mean, to be able to lift the agriculture up, and when it's not just on the production of the many crops and the potential that's there, but it's also in the livestock and in the fisheries, and the entire value chain, coming out of agriculture. So investing in skills, and in a country where a huge part of the population is the youth and the young, and looking for jobs, really to unlock that potential. There needs to be investment in this, but it's not just about, but it's also about the agribusiness skills. You know what I mean? And if you look at the history of agriculture across the countries that are really doing well skills, there's a huge array, huge portfolio of skills that can be built up, and I think and investing them is critical if we want to see South Sudan really on security and agriculture.
Meshach Malo, a lot still need to be done in the field of agriculture, and I just want to know, Chief, during all this time since the independence up to date, the achievement of agriculture.
I think we of agriculture when we're able to ensure that there is food for everyone. But in 2013, at the celebration of independence, we had. So it's a matter of us going back. We were producing already 1 million metric tons, and food was everywhere. You hear about this cotton that South Sudan used to produce shirts. Now it looks almost like a dream. So it means that we have to go of the founding father of the nation. He speaks about how can you use the oil revenue to generate and to rejuvenate opportunity there with the resources that are currently there, to be able to boost, even at low productivity. 4% of the land is producing 900,000. Then, and we need 1.4. Then it is not so much rocket science. What we need to do to to be able to feed ourselves, and South Sudan can actually feed the region. So the Minister of Agriculture, Honorable Josephine Lagu, always speaks of the slogan, let's eat what we produce and we produce what we eat. So, but I really believe that if there is peace, investment, and then the government invests its own resources into this agriculture sector. Currently, investment in the agriculture from the GDP stands at, I believe, less than 5% of the total GDP.
Yeah.
So when you don't, that investment is also needed to be there so that that growth can be seen. And that is just investment from the budget level, doesn't speak so much about the budget execution. Was it put into the farming land, or is it for salaries and all this? So there is great potential for South Sudan, and and the market is really growing. When you look at Ethiopia, they're now 100 million. I'm really looking forward to that time when South Sudan begins to look at Ethiopia as a market to be able to sell. Currently, Uganda, if I'm not wrong, makes up to about $700 million from exporting to South Sudan.
Wow.
Imagine, you go to their books of account, you see those figures. That means that we need a reverse where the amount South Sudan begins to export out.
Wow, that's great. We are hoping for the change in agriculture in South Sudan. Challenge, if there is any challenge, WFP or any other organization, because you are the mother, tell us if there is any challenge in tackling the issues of food insecurity.
I mean, I think it's of malnutrition amongst, pregnant mothers and breastfeeding mothers and young children. So we need to deal with that. You know what I mean? And there needs education by the government, the investment in health and nutrition, because they all play into food security. We're only less than 7 as a global community signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals and to achieve zero hunger as one of them. So I think there are numerous challenges ahead, and grasp with the investment by government in basic services, in the systems, to allow this as well, where it's important for the government leadership, the government investment in helping to reduce the humanitarian needs as well, because that's important, and help community. The potential to use the wonderful Nile that runs right through this country to connect people, connect communities, and also contribute to food security, contribute to education, and contribute to the well-being of the population.
Thank you so much. Your last message, please.
No, I think my last message is mostly to, in order for that gap to be filled, there is a segment of the population that is not contributing effectively. For instance, particularly the young people, we are still having this food, that 900,000 being produced by the old, particularly women. Those that were born after 2000 and they're now 23 years of age, they are, when you tackle down, you find that their productivity is not very high while they have the energy. So we will really need the young people. Mine is to really make the clarion call that they are the ones now that have to fill this gap. We need to work together to have them back to the farms. I know the city is very, very lucrative, is very admirable, but the country has a challenge. And so we need to work together to make sure that the young people, also the youth, begin to find agriculture as attractive and give in their effort.
Wow, thank you so much, my special guest today with me in the studio. Wish to see you next time to discuss on food production in the country. This has brought us to the end of our program. Please stay tuned for the rest of our ongoing programs. Till then, we meet. And bye-bye for now.
Salam.